Ladies and gentlemen, I have a treat to start the show. None other than V, formerly known as Eve Ensler, Tony Award-winning playwright, activist, performer, and author of the Obie Award-winning theatrical phenomenon, The Vagina Monologues, on the show. Indisputable, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on your show.
Listen, I'm happy to have you. We're gonna talk about the pandemic and how the pandemic has unleashed, as you call it, disaster patriarchy and a war on women. Now, you've been a champion, equal pay for equal work. You have been that person standing in the gap. Your social media is full of activism. This is who you are. So this is very authentic to what you believe. But tell us how it connects to COVID-19. How did it create this war or enhance the war?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. And I think what I really want to talk about today is I was asked by The Guardian to do a piece looking at what has happened with violence against women and the situation of women post-COVID. I've been part of a movement called V-Day for almost 25 years to end violence against women and girls. So we have activists all over the world. And I wrote to everybody. I asked them all similar questions, and then I did a lot of research. And I guess what I'm here to say is that COVID has unleashed the most severe setback to women's liberation in my lifetime. I was absolutely stunned to see what each activist from Africa, from Europe, from all different continents, and they were all telling me very similar things. So I haven't coined the term disaster patriarchy. I think a woman named Rachel Luff talked about it during Katrina for one of the first times. But what it means, Naomi Klein, as you know, was the first to identify disaster capitalism, when capitalists use a disaster to impose measures they couldn't get away with in normal times, generating more profits for themselves. Disaster patriarchy is a parallel and complementary process where men exploit a crisis to reassert control and dominance and rapidly erase hard-earned rights of women. All over the world, patriarchy has taken full advantage of the virus to reclaim power. On one hand, escalating danger and violence to women, and the other hand, stepping in as our supposed controller and protector. I have to say that there are kind of 5 areas where we've seen this disaster patriarchy operating. Women are losing their safety in their homes, their economic power, their autonomy, their education, and they're being pushed onto the front lines unprotected to be sacrificed. Those are kind of the major areas, but we know, for example, in every single country, whether it's Mexico, Italy, the US, across the world, violence against women in the home, domestic violence, has completely been off the charts throughout COVID. You know, the conditions are there, right? You've got people crammed into a tiny world together all day long. You've got alcoholism. You've got men feeling really bad about themselves because they're not working and they're not bringing in money. You've got self-esteem. So we have seen violence against women escalating everywhere. And that violence, is kind of turned home into a sort of torture chamber for women, right? On top of that, we've seen the spread of revenge porn as lockdown has pushed the world online, right? And we've seen landlords actually saying to women across the world, if you have sex with me, I'll reduce your rent, right? So what people are calling sextortion, right? Then we look at jobs, right? 5 million workers in America, women workers have lost their jobs, right? So this is a profound thing. And women are now in their homes, right? Taking care of their kids 24/7, being forced to operate as teachers as well as caretakers, cooks, whatever. The overwhelm and exhaustion reported around the world was just incredible, and real kind of human rights issues as well, where you look at the crisis in the UK, for example, where there's no access for migrant and Black, Asian, and minority women to basic things that they need, like healthcare, education, services, internet, right? And then the next area, which I think I had a front row seat for was what happens to frontline workers. I've been very active in with the National Nurses United, and actually organized a play that I interviewed nurses during the pandemic, and then got all these amazing actors to perform. It was called That Kindness, and we did it at Brooklyn Academy of Music and across the country. But what's happened to nurses? We knew at the very beginning of the pandemic, they were being sent into the most contagious, deadly situations. They didn't have gowns. They were being asked to wear garbage bags. Do you remember? They didn't have masks. They were reusing their masks. We've seen frontline workers, whether it's poultry factories, whether it's nurses, whether it's farmer workers, the Allianz of Farmer Workers, who are an amazing organization of women, have seen rises in pesticide poisoning, sexual violence on the job, all these things because no one has their eyes on it anymore. Same with poultry, women who work in poultry factories, squeezed together in these tiny proximity without protections and forced to come to work whether they have fevers or not. So we're seeing this across the world, that frontline workers are not protected, yet they're saving our lives. They're the people who are on the front line making our lives possible, and we are sacrificing them.
Yeah.
And then there's education. We have seen, I think there's an estimate now between 10 to 20 million girls are no longer going to school. No longer going to school. Education was our literally the forefront of the new liberation movement for girls around the world. Girls were getting educated. When girls aren't educated, what happens? They get sold, right? They are no longer breadwinners, so their families marry them off early. We are looking at the rates of female genital mutilation in countries where it was decreasing, rising, because when girls are educated, they become breadwinners for their families. Their families don't cut them. When they don't do that, they get cut so they can be sold off in dowry. So we have that going on. And I think one of the things that really got me about this whole thing is that women are the most needed, necessary, and profound part of what is keeping humanity alive, while at the same time, they are the least valued, right? Most violated and easiest sacrificed, Yeah. So I think that's really what the data is showing across the board.
Let me just say this. First of all, thank you for doing the work of God. What you have just dropped, the knowledge that you have just shared, has enlightened me and so many people who are watching this program. And I want to remind everyone, we call them essential workers, but refuse to give them essential pay. And that should give you an idea of how jacked up we are as a country. And everything that V just described, it only illuminates the fact that we were already messed up before the pandemic. What the pandemic did is it created an enhancer to the social dysfunction that was always here. And now you have to deal with it in a more exaggerated way because of the post-pandemic elements that you see occurring now. V, I'm flat out of time, but I'm so thankful for you coming on the show, dropping that knowledge. How can people connect with this campaign and connect with you?
Connect with vday.org or 1billionrising.org. And I just want to say that what we need to really be thinking about is how we dismantle patriarchy, because it is the mindset that underlines all the isms, whether it's racism, imperialism, colonialism, transphobia, homophobia. That's what we've got to do. So connect with our movement, become a part of really turning around what is happening to women on the planet so they can be safe, so they can be free, so they can be honored, so they can be cherished, and so they could rise in the future.
V, you got an ally with me forever, okay? I thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.